Hi again. Today we're going to look at changing mixed numbers into improper fractions and then vice versa. We're first going to look at how to change a mixed number into an improper fraction. Our learning target or I can statement says I can convert mixed numbers into improper fractions and vice versa. Vice versa just means going backwards. So we're going to do it both ways. We're going to go mixed numbers to improper fractions and then improper fractions into mixed numbers. Now, when you're converting mixed numbers into improper fractions, first of all, mixed numbers are a whole numbers along with the fraction. Like 3 1/2 is a mixed number. 4 2/5 is a mixed number, where 2/5 would just be a proper fraction because it does not have a whole number attached to it. Now, when you're converting mixed numbers into improper fractions, you must first multiply the denominator and the whole number. And the denominator is the bottom number of the fraction. Next, you would then add the numerator. All of those processes, those steps, that answer will become the numerator in the improper fraction. And then the last step will be to keep the denominator the same in from your mixed number to your improper fraction. So let's look at some examples together. So I'm going to do the first two steps. When I do that, I normally call that I say that I'm forming a backward C because I'm working from the 3 to the 2, then back to the 2. Now, I'm going to multiply the 2 and the 3, which gives me 6, and then I'm going to add 2 more, which gives me 8. Remember, that becomes the numerator in my mixed number, my improper fraction, and the 3 is going to stay the same because 3 was my denominator in my mixed number. Let's look at example 2. I'm going to do the backward C again. I'm going to multiply, add. So 4 times 1 gives me 4, plus 1 more gives me 5. That becomes my numerator, and my denominator is going to stay 4. On the last one here, backward C, multiply, add. 6 times 3 gives me 18, plus 2 more gives me 20. That becomes my numerator. Denominator is going to stay 3. So let's do 2 more examples. So 4 1/2. Backwards, multiply, add. 4 times 2 gives me 8, plus 1 more gives me 9. And denominator stays the same, and that's going to stay 2. The last one here is 16 1/3. Remember, we're going to work from that backward C. We're going to multiply here, add there. 16 times 3. I'm going to do the work over to the side. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 more gives me 4. That gives me 48. Now add that numerator. That gives me 49. That becomes the numerator in my improper fraction. And then 3 is going to stay my denominator. So now let's look at going the vice versa. Let's look at going from changing an improper fraction to a mixed number. First of all, an improper fraction, it is a fraction to which your numerator is larger than your denominator. Let's go back and look at the prior example. The 49 over 3. 49 is my numerator. Since the top number is bigger than my denominator, then that's called an improper fraction. A proper fraction is when your numerator should be smaller than your denominator because proper fractions are always less than 1. Improper fractions will be greater than 1. So just remember, improper fractions is where your numerator is greater than your denominator. So let's go back to the steps for this one. We're going to first divide your numerator into your denominator. Denominator is the bottom number, numerator is your top number. Once you've did that, the whole number becomes the whole number in your mixed number. The remainder will become your numerator in the mixed number. And then your denominator will stay the same. And then you're going to simplify if needed. So again, I know the steps sounds kind of confusing. So let's work some few problems out. And I'll discuss each step as I get to it. So my problem or my improper fraction here is 10/8. So step 1 said to divide my numerator into my denominator into my numerator. So that means 10 is going to be my dividend and the 8 is going to become my divisor. So how many times will 8 go into 10 without going over? It would go once. So basically, I'm just following the steps of the long division we learned last week. Now, I'm going to stop here because last week we taught you guys to add a decimal and 3 zeros. But for this case, when you're going from improper to mixed number, I need that remainder. So let me highlight the rest of the steps. This whole number here in the division problem, that whole number lets me know how many whole times that 8 will divide into that 10 or how many whole groups I can form. So I formed one whole group, so that's going to be my whole number in my divisor. That remainder is also important. That remainder tells me what was left over. That's going to be my numerator in my mixed number. So I'm going to put it in here. And then denominator is going to stay the same. Again, how many pieces, how many groups. I'm going to keep that at 8. So this 8 becomes my denominator. So when I go back to write it as a mixed number, 8/10 is 1 and 2/8. Now, on the step 5, simplify if needed. Now, I've already converted into a mixed number, but if you'll notice, 2 and 8 still share a factor. They share 2. So the fraction part of my mixed number is not in simplest form. So I'm going to go through and divide both by 2. The whole number is going to stay the whole number. I did not bother that. That's going to stay 1. Now 2 divided by 2 will give me 1. And then 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. So my final solution to that problem is 1 and 1/4. Now let's look at example number 2. So 11/5. Let's go through the steps. Step 1 is to divide my denominator into my numerator. So again, my numerator is going to become my dividend, or that's what's going to go inside the house. I'm going to put 11 here. And then on the outside, 5 becomes my divisor. I'm going to divide that out. 5 goes into 10 11 2 times, which is 10. I'm going to have 1 left over. Now, let's break down the parts of my mixed number. This 2 whole groups stays my whole number. This remainder becomes my numerator. And then the denominator is going to stay the same. So my answer becomes 2 and 1/5. Now, let's continue with a few more examples. So 25 divided by 3. Same steps. I'm going to divide my denominator into my numerator, or my numerator is my dividend and the denominator is my divisor. So 25 is going to go in the house. 3 goes on the outside. 0 is just long division, how we learned last week. That goes 8 times, so that's 24. I have a remainder. Remember, now we're going to use the remainder. So this 8 becomes my whole number. It tells me how many equal whole groups. This 1 becomes my numerator. Tell me what parts are left over. And denominator stays the same. So the answer is 8 wholes with 1 and 3/8 left over. The last problem is 63 into 10. Again, what goes inside the house? Numerator. So the 63 would go inside the house. 10 would go on the outside. Just do my regular long division. It's algorithm we learned last week. That goes 6 times. That's 60. Subtract that. I have 3 left over. Remember, this time we're going to use that remainder. That 6 becomes my whole. That 3 becomes my numerator. And then that 10 becomes my divisor. So my answer will be 6 and 3/10. And since they do not share any common factors, then that is in simplest form. So again, let's go back and let's summarize before we end this video. Learning target, I can convert mixed numbers into improper fractions and vice versa. Converting mixed numbers into improper fractions. First, you multiply your denominator and your whole number, and then you add your numerator. Or as I called it, you're working the backward C. On that backward C, you're going to multiply, then you're going to add first. This becomes the numerator of your improper fraction. Your denominator stays the same. Remember, an improper fraction is when the fraction in which your numerator, which is your top number, is larger than your denominator. Remember, mixed numbers where you have a whole number and a fraction, like 3 and 1/2. My whole part is 3, and that fractional part is 1/2. And then the vice versa, convert improper to mixed numbers. Remember, you're going to first divide your numerator, by your denominator, or your top by your bottom, which means your top number will go inside the house, as you guys say. Once you go through your long division steps, your whole number or your equal number of groups will be your whole number and your mixed number. The part that's left over becomes your numerator, and then of course the denominator stays the same. If needed, remember, simplify that fractional part if it is not already in simplest form. That is it for this video. I hope this helped. As always, if you need to go back, rewind, review, please do so. If you still have questions, please see me or Mr. E. I will check you guys later.